guys, this is your girl Wakeji Kamore and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. I do hope that you're having a fantastic day. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are on the second last chapter of Deuteronomy. I am so excited, not just because we are about to finish, but because of what is coming next. The book of Joshua is just going to be exciting. If you're here for the very first time, karibu sana to my channel. Please stay until the end of this video and stay on the other videos that will also come after this video. And also please remember to subscribe, to like, to comment, to share, and also to hit the notification bell so that you can get a notification every time a video comes up. If you're not a visitor here, if you have been here before, either because you started this journey with me from the beginning or you joined somewhere halfway and decided to stay, thank you so much. I truly do appreciate you. May the Lord bless you. I feel like one day I should just call like a party for people who have been on this journey with me. You guys who don't realize how much I appreciate you, how much you make it possible. Like you make me, you motivate me and inspire me to keep going. Anyway, so today we're going to be covering Deuteronomy chapter 33, and this is actually the last recorded of Moses' speech. This is the last thing he says in the chapter, and then after that in chapter 34, sob, he dies. Aki, I know. I'm like the one storyteller. I shouldn't be telling before people die, but you know this story. I mean, you guys know everybody in the Bible died, apart from, as in everybody in the Bible is no longer here on this planet. So I'm not like spoiling for you. I'm not like doing spoilers for a movie. You know this will happen. So anyway, so in this chapter, I'm not going to be reading it word for word, but I'm just going to tell you, like, I don't know, a 3-line summary of what is happening in this chapter, and then I'm going to share with you what my lesson is. The reason I'm not going to read it word for word is actually not very long, but because my takeout is a little bit, has a lot of me talking in it, so I don't want to take up so much of your time. So this chapter, as I've mentioned, is actually Moses' last recorded speech, and he used his last words to speak blessings over the tribes of Israel. So Moses blessed each tribe of Israel and their descendants by calling each tribe by their name and then speaking a blessing over that tribe and its descendants. Please remember that these names are the names of the 12 sons of Jacob. I don't know whether you guys remember the 12 sons of Jacob, but let me just give you like a quick recap of who the 12 sons of Jacob are. This is Reuben, this is Judah, this is Levi, Benjamin, Zebulun, there is Issachar, there's Gad, there's Dan, there's Naphtali, Asher, and then there's Joseph. These are the 12 sons of Jacob, who also was renamed to become Israel. So when I say the 12 tribes of Israel, these are the tribes that I'm talking about, because then they went to have children, so that they became like the tribe of Reuben, the tribe of Gad, the tribe of Dan. I know you guys know that. But anyway, so let me tell you what I find very strange in this chapter. So as I mentioned, is that Moses called every tribe and blessed them. And that's also one of the things that I noticed, that in the tribes that he called, Ephraim and Manasseh are mentioned in that tribe, even if quote unquote they are not the sons of Jacob, but rather the sons of Joseph. So Ephraim and Manasseh were the sons of Joseph, but I'm going to explain to you why they are mentioned in the tribes of Israel. So Moses mentions every tribe and calls every tribe by name, apart from one tribe. Let me tell you guys, I had never seen this. I saw this when I read this chapter. Now I had never seen it. I had never like noticed it, but I noticed that he called 12 sons. So he calls Reuben, he calls Simeon, he calls Levite, he calls Judah, Dan, Naphtali, he called Gad, he called Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph. Sorry. He actually called Reuben. Those are all the ones that I've read are actually the sons of of Jacob. So he calls Reuben, he calls Judah, he calls Levi, he calls Benjamin, he calls Zebulun, he calls Issachar, Gad, Dan, Naphtali, Asher, and Joseph, but did not call one tribe. So the tribe that was not called is a tribe of Simeon, who was also a son of Jacob, of Israel. So you wonder, why is it that he didn't call that tribe? Like, why didn't he bless that tribe? Like, why? Like, it just feels so unfair. What is happening there? So actually, in the blessings that Moses is speaking over the tribes of Israel, he speaks a blessing over Manasseh and speaks a blessing over the tribe of Ephraim as well. Please note that Ephraim and Manasseh were not quote unquote the sons of Israel, but they were the sons of Joseph. So if we're to go by just that, it means that Ephraim and Manasseh were actually the grandsons of Israel, or the grandsons of Jacob. So you're like, Yani, Ephraim and Manasseh made it on this list, and Simeon, who was actually an actual son of, of Jacob, didn't make it on this list. Let's find out how. So first, let me explain to you why Manasseh and Ephraim made it on this list. You see, the thing is, now these two tribes, which is Manasseh and Ephraim, have now become partakers of these blessings of the tribe of Israel, even though, as I've mentioned, they're not necessarily the sons, quote unquote, they're not necessarily the sons of Israel. So why do you think they were mentioned and they have become partakers of this blessing? This is because at the point of his death, Jacob adopted Joseph's sons and he made them his own sons. In Genesis chapter 48, verse 5 to 6, let me read for you what Jacob tells his son Joseph regarding his grandchildren, Ephraim and Manasseh. So this is what he says. Now I am claiming, this is Jacob telling Joseph, I'm claiming as my own sons these two boys of yours, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born here in the land of Egypt before I arrived. They will be my sons, just like Reuben and Simeon are. But any children born to you, so that's Jacob telling Joseph, the other kids that you will get after these two, those ones now will be your own children. He says, but any children born to you in the future will be your own. So Jacob actually literally adopted Ephraim and Manasseh and made them into his own children. And that is why they count and they've become partakers of these blessings of the tribes of Israel. So let's go back to why Simeon is not mentioned in these blessings. Like, why would you think that I mean, Manasseh and Ephraim are counted, but Simeon is not counted? So the tribe of Simeon had come from, of course, the guy called Simeon, who was actually Simeon was a son of Jacob, and the first wife was Leah. Was actually a son of Jacob and Leah, and he was a guy. Let me tell you who Simeon was. Simeon was a guy who was very angry and very vengeful. Let me tell you what he did at some point of his life. So there's a point where their sister got raped by another guy from let's say a neighboring town. I'm going to really paraphrase his story, but Dinah, who was their sister, got raped by another guy who was from a neighboring country or neighboring nation or neighboring village, whatever you want to call it. And then the guy came to Akina Simeon and the brothers and said, I want to marry this girl. But remember, he had already defiled her. So this is what Simeon and the brothers decided. He said, if you want to marry our sister, then you have to make sure that all the men in your camp, you yourself, your father, your slaves, all the men in your camp are circumcised, because that is our practice and that is what we believe in. When you do that, then you can take our girl and you can marry her. So those guys went, they all got circumcised, their slaves, their children, their fathers, everybody, every man in the camp got circumcised. And then Simeon decided, see, now these guys are circumcised and they are weak, let's go kill all of them. That is the guy I'm talking about. That is Simeon. Simeon went to that village and killed all the men in that village. Dan kaput, finished, took their sister back, and that was the end of that story. So this guy was a guy who had a reputation of being vengeful and being a very angry guy. So by the time their father was dying, their father Jacob or Israel was dying, he spoke blessings and curses over his sons. But over the tribe of Simeon, he actually spoke a curse. Let's read the curse. This can be found in Genesis chapter 49, verse 5. And I find it so strange that actually this curse is spoken to two tribes. It's spoken to Simeon and it's also spoken to Levi. But I think the Levites redeemed themselves. And I'll tell you how they kind of redeemed themselves. So Simeon and Levi are two of a kind. Their weapons are instruments of violence. You see, Simeon and Levi are two of a kind. Their weapons are instruments of violence. So the father knew, these my two children, they're violent. I'll show you how Levites were also very, very violent people. So he says that the weapons are instrument of violence. May I never join in their meeting. May I never be party to their plans. For in their anger, they murdered men, and they crippled oxen just for sport. A curse on their anger, for it is fierce. A curse on their wrath, for it is cruel. I will scatter them. This is the curse. I will, okay, all those other things I've been reading, like curses, like this is the one I want us to focus on. These two lines. I will scatter them among the descendants of Jacob. I will disperse them through Israel. So Jacob curses Simeon and Levi and say that they will be scattered. That means they kama wataisha. That is basically what it means. So is it possible that this curse to be scattered and to be dispersed that was spoken upon Simeon had started taking effect between when Jacob spoke about it when he was dying and this point where Moses is actually speaking his last blessings? Because I'm like, why didn't he call this the tribe of Simeon? All right, so let's look at the numbers because numbers don't lie. I'm not talking about numbers, the book. I'm talking about numbers like number 1, 2, 3. Let's look at the numbers because numbers never lie. All right, I feel like talking about an election results, but no, that is what I'm talking about. So during, you guys remember the first census that happened in the book of Numbers? This was Numbers chapter 1, where Moses was asked to count every tribe and to count the boys that are 20, okay, the men, no, those are not boys, men that are 20 years and above that can fight, and to count them in every tribe. So during that first census, the men who were above 20 years in the tribe of Simeon were 59,300, which was actually the second highest population at that time. It was, I can't remember which other tribe had like the most people, and then it was Simeon, the tribe of Simeon had the most people, the biggest population of men. All right, so during the second census that happened at the end of Numbers, which was Numbers chapter 26, the men who were above 20 years in the tribe of Simeon were totaled to 22,000, which was the lowest population at that time of the second census. So these guys have come from being the second highest population during the first census to being the lowest population during the second census, and those two censuses took a difference of what, 38 years, because that's 38 years that they wandered in the wilderness. So let me just give you a little bit of facts. So 7 of those tribes of Israel had increased in numbers between the two censuses. 7 of those tribes had actually increased in numbers. That's a very big percentage of 7 out of 12. That's a really huge percentage. Then 5 of those tribes of Israel had decreased in numbers between the two censuses. But even in their decreasing in numbers, none of them had a decrement of 10%. Like that, none of them had decreased by 10%. None of the tribes, apart from Simeon, the tribe of Simeon. So this tribe of Simeon had decreased from 53,900 to 22,000. So it did not just decrease by 10%, by 20%, 30%, but it decreased with a whooping 60%. It's like half of the people, even, and then more, another 10% more. So this tribe had really, really decreased. So we can safely conclude that the curse on the tribe of Simeon had already started taking effect by the time that Moses is actually speaking this blessing. There's a very high possibility that there were very little tribe of Simeon left by the time that Moses is speaking this blessing. That is just by doing the tabulation of the numbers. That is just to show that actually the curse that Jacob had spoken over Simeon, the tribe of Simeon, actually had already started taking effect. Why am I taking you guys through all this? I better be going somewhere with all these numbers. I feel like I'm an analytic of elections. Okay, so what am I saying? This is what I'm saying, my brothers and sisters, that there's a lot of power in the word, in a spoken word. There's a lot of power in words. Words carry in them the power of life and the power of death. And I am so glad that Moses chose to use his last words to bless these guys. Because I mean, there's some point he was just like, you guys are the reason why I'm not going to go to the promised land. Oh, your sins are the reasons God. I mean, this guy had, Moses had just like, he could have just decided, you guys are going to be cast, mutokome. And just left. He could have even just left without even appointing another leader and, graciously giving them leadership and teaching them and blessing them. But I am so glad that Moses actually used his last words and blessed these people, and that his last words carried with them life, they carried with them blessings upon the tribes of Israel. So my question is, when you open your mouth to speak to yourself and even to speak to others, I feel like we talk about speaking to others or speaking about something, but we don't talk about the fact that we speak to ourselves on a daily basis. There are things you tell yourself on a daily basis. So when you open your mouth to speak to yourself or to speak to others or to speak upon a situation, to speak regarding a situation, are the words that are coming out of your mouth encouraging? Are the words that are coming out of your mouth uplifting? Are they building, or are they crushing, or are they, what kind of words are you speaking? Are they blessing, or are they cursing? Do they carry with them life, or do they carry with them death? That is the challenge that I found in this chapter, that Jacob actually cursed his son Simeon, and we actually start to see that curse taking effect. And Moses is here blessing the tribes, and not even the tribe of Simeon is not being mentioned. I don't even know whether they had completely, I can't wait to see, like in the book of Joshua, even just when the tribes are being given land, whether the tribe of Simeon will be there. I really can't wait to just get to that point and see what happens there. But I really pray for us all, that even as we speak about the words that we speak to ourselves, the words that we speak up regarding situations, the words that we speak to the next person, that those words will be for building. I pray that we will be builders, not destroyers. I pray that we will be blessers and not cursers, and I pray that we will be life givers with the words that come out of our mouth. That is my prayer for today. That is my challenge for you today. And this has been your girl, Wakeji Kamore. And this has been Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. Speak words that build. See you soon.